Hi, this is Jennifer Toronto with She Shall Be Praised, where we talk about issues that women face, and the point of what we do is to try and uplift women. Um, Very soon, I'm looking forward to having other women. We'll have a conversation about these things, but today, what I want to talk about is a blog that I wrote years ago called Destructive Feminism. And I think as we go further, it just becomes even more obvious the ways that we are suffering. Feminism was supposed to set us free on some sense, and that just hasn't happened. So I'm going to read this book. It's going to talk a lot about, read this book, read this blog post. It's going to talk a lot about masculinity and feminism. And uh, so I'm just going to go right into it. In the past, I've kind of read through with maybe just a little comment here. Today, I'm just going to let myself relax a little bit and talk as I'm going through this, add kind of my thoughts about it. So I have a friend, this is what I wrote. I have a friend on Facebook that wrote regarding his religious beliefs that he hopes, as to whatever is out there, that he or she is on his side. This statement got me to thinking about the use of the masculine pronoun he to refer to God. The Bible teaches that God is spirit. God is not limited in any way by gender. He does not need a counterpart to reproduce. If God wants to create another being, he simply does it. He also doesn't need a physical body to commune with those he loves. In the form of the Holy Spirit, he enters and indwells those with whom he shares a love relationship. The Bible also teaches that when we die, we neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels of God in heaven, suggesting that gender is irrelevant in heaven. God has also given both male and female qualities throughout the Bible, suggesting that God is above gender. He's something greater than either man or woman, but more like both together. Why then use the masculine gender to refer to God? And you're probably wondering what this has to do with feminism, but I'm getting to that. So I'm going to stop it right here because when I wrote this, which was maybe over 10 years ago, um, the word gender did not have the same connotation that it does now. Back then, gender and sex really were interchangeable as terminology. That is not really the case now. Now, gender has come to mean something it just didn't mean then, and it's more like what we choose rather than what we are. Whereas when I was writing this, it was that was not a discussion that was being had. So when I use gender here, really what I'm saying is, you know, sex, what that you were male or female. In a back to the thing. In a patriarchal society, and ancient Israel was a patriarchal society. To refer to God in the feminine would have meant to relate him to the socially inferior sex. The Israelites naturally would have called God he to acknowledge his superiority and headship of Israel. The question I eventually come around to is, are we still a patriarchal society? My conclusion: modern feminism has reinforced American patriarchalism. Why do I say this? After all, women have come a long way from being relegated to the home, right? Well, here it is. American women, and probably European women, have reached for equality with men by adopting traditionally masculine traits and devaluing traditionally feminine roles. Modern women want to do what men do and be what men have historically been, and they've been moderately, though not completely, successful. By trying to assume male roles, women have essentially said, you're right, it's better to be a man than a woman. I'm not going to comment here. Let me just move on. If we really want to challenge the patriarchal system, then we need to restore value to traditional female roles. So here is what I am going to say is that throughout history, the role women uniquely have played in the home has been valued. It was not as outside and not as public as men. You don't see it written as much in the history books, but women did exert power in the home and influence in the home and in the family. The family was where women shaped society and women shaped culture. And my point here is that by devaluing women's role in the home, we have essentially said it is better to be a man, which is, I would think, not at all what feminism is trying to accomplish. But if what we say is to have true freedom, we need to be able to act like men, then where is the beauty of womanhood in that? Where is the dignity of womanhood in that? Where are women elevated in that? In fact, it only reinforces what feminists critique about men and thinking they're better than women. Now, women think men are better than women, and maybe always have on some level. And this is the offense that I'm addressing, is that, we don't have to pretend or play like we're men in order to have real solid value in our homes, in society, and in our workplaces. We can actually be women and have value. We don't have to minimize a woman or womanhood in order to say that we have exceptional value or equal value. If we really want to challenge the patriarchal system, then we need to restore value to traditional female roles. Matriarchal systems value motherhood and the traits and experiences which are required to be a nurturing mother and support a strong family system. While modern women have proven that they can be successful in a great variety of professions, we have at the same time done serious damage in respect to the roles that make women distinctly different from men. Culturally, we have joined men in rejecting the value of women who devote their lives to the home. Now, I am going to stop there because not all men devalue what women do in the home. And that is the conversation that has been lost in this whole discussion, is that there are men who really value women and what they do, even if they don't work outside of the home. You do not have to be publicly successful to have exceptional value. And but that is not at all what feminism says. Feminism says that if your work is done behind the curtains, you don't have the same value as someone whose work is done in public. And that's just wrong. If we truly want to triumph, American women need to acknowledge that there are some things that women are particularly suited to do, just as there are some things that men are particularly suited to do, and be proud of that rather than trying to belittle men. And so we need to elevate the value that women bring to the family and to society uniquely, that men just cannot do. You know, we know that women are more relational in general than men. And this was kind of hammered home to me when my kids were little. I have four sons. I was an only child. I was not raised around boys. I had cousins I spent a lot of time with, but I was not raised around boys. So when I had my four sons and watched them play together, when boys play together, they play alongside each other. They will race cars together. They will they don't interact as much except maybe to crash things every so often or whatever, bump into each other, that sort of thing. So when I would be around little girls who were playing together, it blew my mind because I was used to little boys and the way they played. And when I saw little girls, they would sit around a table, create a tea set. One little girl almost inevitably would start telling the other little girls what to do, and they would role play in that way. And there was a very clear there is very often a very clear power structure when little girls play together that does not exist when little boys play together. It's just very, very different. And those differences matter. And there's something that we don't teach it. We do not teach that. Um, it is something that we are made to to do something in our genetics and DNA and personalities and whatever. We just look at life differently. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. Anyone who has watched dads play with their kids knows that moms do it differently. Anyone who's watched moms play it with their kids know that dads do it differently. We interact differently, and children need what mothers bring that's different than what men bring. And they need what dads bring that's different from what mothers bring. So, we need to elevate those differences, honor and respect those differences, and not try to erase and eliminate them. Do I have back to the blog, do I have a certain amount of disrespect for current day feminism? Yes. I think they've disrespected what makes us essentially feminine. Feminists have given men the right to judge women by a new set of standards, one that raises our standards professionally but lowers our standards personally. We have given up as much as we have gained, and therefore, have we really gained anything? Or did we simply give up something that made us as women special to gain something that makes us as people common? I think personally that we should respect both the commonalities and the differences between the sexes rather than trading what we are, the heart of the family, to try and prove what we're not, namely inferior. So when I was young, I was an only child. I was raised by a single mother. I was going to grow up, go to college, get a good job, you know, support myself, do all the things I wanted to do, as a working woman. That was my job. And I was not a little girl who fantasized about having children, maybe because I was an only child. Um, so I just thought about what it was I wanted to be when I grew up. And when I did, become an adult and I began having children, that totally changed. I loved being a mother in a way that I did not expect. I thought my kids were just absolute miracles. And they were different. And it wasn't because we raised them differently necessarily, but they each came out with their own personality. And being a mother was challenging, it was hard, it was rewarding, it was repetitive. There were good and bad, but that was what I gave my life to at the time, which was a total 180 from where I had seen myself being. I thought I was going to grow up, have one child, and that was going to be it. And the irony was, I also thought I was going to have trouble having children because I didn't start having children till a little bit later. Um, and so my second son was a complete surprise, but he was just absolutely amazing, just like the first and different. And so then I began to wonder, how were each of them going to be different? And so my life, um, where I had only considered I would have one child and be a working woman, I then became a stay at home mom and ultimately a homeschool mom, and I had four sons. And when they got older, I returned to work. Um, so for um 15 years, 16, yeah, about 15 years, I was a stay-at-home mom, and then I returned to work. And since I love what I do. I love helping people. The way I work with people is a little bit differently than what some of the men do. And I have seen that women bring to the workplace a different skill set and different relational set, and they can be very successful. They just do it differently, just do it very, sometimes differently. That's not to say all men do and all women do things differently. That's not the case. Some women um, are professionals in a way that is traditionally more masculine, and some men have traits when they work in the workplace that are traditionally associated with women. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm not talking about feminine men and masculine women. I just mean that we all have different personalities, and some personalities are more forceful, and some personalities are more subdued. And there are people on the far ends of each type, right? But women can be very successful in the workplace. And so I don't deny that. And I'm not saying that there's no place for women in the workplace. And I don't even think that's particularly Christian or biblical necessarily. Um, that's another conversation. That's a Proverbs 31 conversation where we do see this Proverbs 31 woman actively engaging in um, economic activities. But that being said, I don't think we have to give up what makes us as women different and special and unique to be successful in the workplace if that's where we choose to spend our time and energy and efforts. And I also don't believe that we need to minimize women who love being a mother, love raising a family, love being home and creating a good life. Like, that is perfectly acceptable. In fact, it's laudable because there are, we just don't all have to choose the same path. We can do different things. We are allowed to make those choices for ourselves and our families, and we shouldn't look down on people who make the choice to stay home and do the traditional female roles. Um, and really, that's where feminism has failed us because feminism wants us to reject what we traditionally were and embrace something we never were. And we don't have to do that in order to have a good, healthy, successful life. We must, if we're going to truly value women and womanhood, we must keep both what we traditionally were, even if we use our times and talents in non traditional ways. We don't have to sacrifice the one to achieve the other. Um, I may get some blowback on some of this, no doubt I will from both sides. If anybody, is really paying attention and listens this far in. But um, I believe that pursuing success should not mean giving up who you are or parts of who you are unless they are actually harmful to you. But if they are good and valuable components of your personality, they should be used in concert, that they should be a part of the work that you do. You should be fully who you are, the absolute um, best parts of who you are should be poured into the choices that you make in life. And that it just hurts us all when we say that in order for women to achieve equality, they have to be able to be like men. That is such a devastating statement right there. Really, women should not have to be um, y- a lot. A lot of times when people say that, what they're really saying is men get to be bad. Men get to do all these destructive things, and women ought to be able to do them too. Women ought to be able to be bad too, and say things and do things and all that are just, if men get to do it, women should be able to do it too. And that's just horrible. What we need a high view of womanhood and a high view of manhood. And instead of saying women should be able to do the bad things men do, we should be saying men need to step up and be better versions of men than they had been in the past. And women are allowed to step up and be better versions of themselves as well. Lowering womanhood so that we can achieve some sort of equality and freedom, that's not freedom. It's just, men who historically have done the things that women were disgusted with, left their children, left their families, had sexual freedom and all. Those were not those were not happy men. I mean, well, I'm not going to go there. I won't go down that rabbit hole. Surely some person who lacks maturity will say, sure they were, okay? But but statistically, historically, if you look at it, the happiest people in life have been married men and women in committed relationships with good families doing life together. And they didn't have to give up who they were in order to achieve it. And that's what I'm saying. That we should use our God-given times, our talents, our time and talents, what makes us truly unique to bring to the table what other people can't bring to the table, rather than pitching what makes us special to try and fit into somebody else's mold. That's what I'm saying. That we need to be who we are, and the the best way we can. So, yeah, I do think feminism has been destructive. Feminism has lowered what women were in almost every way you can name, except professionally. Professionally, we are in the workplace more, but um, otherwise, what we have lost in this pursuit of career and career opportunities and libertinism, really sexual freedom, which is really sexual misery, um, what we have given up for career equality is devastating.